sleeping beauty?
This time I literally mean morning, because most of the time I'm arguing with the afternoon birds. This time I'm arguing with the morning birds. Bastards. Anyway, I'm making this particular video for a few different reasons. One, to try and combine the different sides of my channel together more, the analytical and the cosplaying. Hey, it's not racist when I do whiteface, although I am going to get out of this costume, firstly because my eyelids are painted open, and secondly, I've just used this one way too much. I've got to give it a break. Ow. Oh God, I feel so much more normal now. Anyway, number two, I want to show off my newly organised shelves. As some may recall, it was all alphabetically organised together. Since decided that categorised does make it look nicer and easier to show off rather than all jumbled together. Also means I will be jumping around a lot to get enough angles. Not so you can come and rob me. You can pause the video, look, see something interesting and ask about it in the comments. Please interact with me. This is my personal favourite shelf from now on. Not just for the Egyptian theme. Goes a lot deeper and smarter than that, I hope. And to address the badger in the room, elephant in the room, that was a Christmas present from a very special friend. I was not going to get rid of it. Diamond painting is my new relaxing hobby when I get round to buying more, but in response of showing it off, I have donated 3 times the sales amount to an LGBTQ plus charity. That is genuinely the only HP thing I've gotten in the last 5 years. I do want to put my money where my mouth is when it counts. And some of the videos I've made really go against transphobia. And reason 3 is just to get stuff out of my head, off my chest, out of my life, that I can't really build on into anything bigger. Been trying to workshop a video concept of combining all the game design techniques that I enjoy seeing other people talk about. At first it was just like a clip show, like the title is Video Games Mean Stuff. My way of fighting against anti-intellectual gamers who can't stand that stuff and can't accept other people having it elsewhere. But this video will be leaping off from the concept that I tweeted or excommunicated, X-mend. So yeah, I will just start off very boringly reading what I tweeted. So, I've been annoyed by the old adage of describing a video game like a film, even by critics I respect. The inherent idea that games are lesser than films for some reason. But I just now had a new theory on that. A game and film theory, yeah, screw it. The obvious first, films are older and hold more cultural importance. Even with plenty of shit movies existing and literally anyone able to make one these days, the accomplishment of making and presenting a complete film does hold social weight to most of us. On the other hand, the technology of video games started out very simple and advanced much quicker than film tech, but in a shorter time period haven't yet ingrained themselves in history as solidly as the film industry. To take an example from the film Pixels, please stay with me, the popular 80s games worked on pattern memory and coding, while modern games work on immersion and reaction speed, fitting the nerds good, soldiers bad theme of that film that I find kind of dumb. Yeah, I do agree with the gamers over the soldiers, but the gamers could be pretty and stupid as well. Anyway, the point is that games have a reliance on the audience to be minimally skilled in one way or another. But a film doesn't even require the audience to understand what's happening, just to experience and enjoy it. It was an old Dara O'Brien clip that I did agree with, still do, but he's talking about video games blocking off content, locking access to further features until you've done the boring first half, and comparing it to a book that doesn't close on you until you've explained what the themes are. That kind of thing. So, for a video game to have the feeling of a film, it has to let the player feel the gravitas of a filmmaker and reduce the skill requirements at the same time. That's pretty impressive, but I'm sure not what people think of when saying a game is like a film. At time I credited the revelation to Josh Strife Hayes and his video on Mirror's Edge. But I played Stuntman on PS2 years ago, which is that concept of doing tricky car maneuvers for the sake of a film. It just took me a lot longer to think about it. So that's where my irritation of comparing games to films starts from. The old games can be art. Why do you have to compare them to everything else? They can be art on a deeper level. Just because they require the audience to get involved much more directly doesn't mean it's lesser than film, where you can sit there on your fat ass and do jack shit. Having said that, I do still like films where you can shut your brain off and you don't have to think too much. I like video games where you can shut your brain off. And lately for a quick comparison, the two most recent games I've played is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which deep, introspective, very thoughtful game. I loved it. Followed by The Emperor's New Groove on PlayStation 1, which, even though I've played thousands of times, I know everything off by heart. It was a video game that revels in pointing out its video gameness, based on a movie that similarly reveled in pointing out its moviness. And then from there I could bitch about the comparison of this video game feels like a living, breathing world. Which, yep, PlayStation 2 was the transition, moving away from platformery stuff. PlayStation 3 era, good, decent size, not an excessively large-sized world with nothing in it, or obsessed with the tiny details like horse testicles. Yeah, I know, hundreds of gamers can spend thousands of hours finding millions of details, but if the core game is dull as shit, what worth is it? This is a strike to the top management, not the developers, mostly. The obsession on spending energy on the tiny, unimportant stuff, that energy could be used on making the game work. A living, breathing world has a lot of stuff in it. It doesn't all have to be scientifically accurate. If you want to actually make a scientifically accurate game, you gotta zero in on the actual science that you're trying to teach, not everything at once. It's a focus on priorities, and you've got to balance everything. And sorry, for a video game, the player's interaction is a bit higher, a bit above horse testicles. It always comes back to the balls, like most things. And yes, I'm sitting because I'm tired of standing, not just to show off more shelf. There's nothing worth looking at down the bottom. I didn't delve as much into the environment stuff because I'm kind of I'm really winging this one. It's a rambler, of course. Even off the top of my head, I'm pulling different parts from other critics. The idea of traversing environments, getting from one place to another. It's something that as gamers we accept more rather than in other mediums. Because again, if you're not hyper focusing on the space between plot points, you can just teleport or cut it out. If it's a shortcut, it should feel short, but usually doesn't. Dear Esther had a huge issue with not being a real game when all it was walking. You know, the more you focus on the inconvenience of traveling around the world, the quicker you can help the player get to the good stuff. And now to push to my destination, I'm kind of making up a criticism I haven't actually heard someone make, comparing video games to games, board games, sports games. Like the barest definition of game would be an activity where you follow certain rules to achieve a goal and win.
If you haven't earned it, you don't get to see the latter part of the game. And that doesn't happen in any other medium.
That's kind of going away just as much these days. Another project that I've been working on for way too bloody long has a minor through line of different video game generations having a specific priority. Like I said, PlayStation 3 had their environments. PlayStation 4 and onwards has been exploring accessibility, changing the settings of a game or the rules in order to let more players enjoy them. As I said earlier on, the audience of games need a minimal skill level to enjoy. Now games are looking at how to lower that skill level even more for people who physically can't. Even beyond just letting more people play games, thinking in those terms can activate more creativity for the designers. Different ways on how to present their environments, their stories, their experiences, giving the players the ability to change the rules to help them. If you try that in an actual sport, you get a red card because you can't change the rules unless everyone agrees. On your own, in a video game, go ahead. Selecting an easy mode does not have to affect anybody else. You crybabies. So in conclusion, I do love when a game does these things, but they don't all have to do these things all the time, and we can just enjoy a game that does its own thing. Which makes this video me sitting on the fence, so nobody's gonna like it.
But the fantasy is finally gone.
That could actually be spent on making the game work. Shut up, Maggie. Oh god, that feels so much more normal now. I need to dust my shelves again. My eyelids are painted open. They're kind of details like horse balls. Got a loud fridge on one side and a loud neighbour on the other.